All right, let us start. So what we would like to talk about today is basically, how does it work? Okay, all right. So we'll show you how we work with our projects. First of all, what are the systems we've put in place to be successful in what we are doing on behalf of our investors? What are the partnerships we have formed up to date, and we are aspired to new partnerships? What type of tenants we are after, what kind of returns we are after, and we'll show you how our property journey in the UK started, how it continues, and what our next inspirations. And most importantly, well, all that is due to our wonderful partnerships with the local power teams and nationwide power teams. Understand when I would tell you that finding the project for me is like getting the adrenaline rush. You know, when you're looking for some property, you're getting so much excited. Oh wow, there are so many out there, so many brilliant deals. How to find it? So it's quite easy actually when you're already installed in the country. You have a network of estate agents who are lining up to get your phone number because they know you are a serious investor. If you say you would go for this deal, you will go for it. You will buy it, and you will buy all cash. And we are able to find the best deals and to buy them all cash, thanks to the backing of our wonderful investors. And I would like really to thank you on behalf of the whole UK team for this opportunity to be granted to work on your behalf in the UK market, because that enables us to be the best shopper in the market. When we come to any estate agent and we say, we don't need mortgage, we are straight buyers, we are cash buyers. And believe us, that gives us a possibility to proceed quickly, to buy at better price, to negotiate better conditions. And all that because we have the funds available, entrusted to us under management by our wonderful investors. All right. So estate agents, sourcing agents, letting agents, those are different categories of people who work together and they bring us the deals. Sometimes one of the projects, it came from the personal and professional network. One of the builders which I met at networking event, he WhatsApped me a couple of months later on, like, in my area, there is a very nice property for sale. You might be interested in looking into that. And we're spreading everywhere the word that basically we are looking for projects where we will be able to make commercial conversions into residential units. And we are looking at quite substantial deals. So we are well positioned in the market. We're not looking for one residential unit, we're looking at least for 8 to 10 residential units as it stands now. Okay. The next stage would be deciding on the project. So once we have found one potential project, we will run all the necessary due diligence. We'll make a site visit. We will run an extensive research, which is our in-house know-how. We've created even a separate consultant entity which does only the property researches. Typically for our London projects, we will run over 100 pages of detailed research, where we'll have a look at the current valuations of the market of the same property, whether we're paying too much, or whether we're buying a good price. Typically, we are buying at really good price. What are the current market rentals, in case we'd like to have any spare exit? What are potential environmental hazards, if there are any? Is there any flood risk? How we are going to mitigate it? What kind of additional insurance we might need in place? So all kind of those parameters we're looking at, there are more than 10 checks. They make us sure to proceed with the investment. At the same time, we would run a high-level estimate of the build cost. So we would need that to pull together the high-level financials for the prior approval of our investors. If we would judge that the return is sufficient, we'll present the deal to our investors. Okay? How many are you among the room? Are you owning any property? Okay, quite several hands, great stuff. How many are you landlords? Okay, so you know what are the challenges are, right? we will take this into our shoulders. So when we are moving forward, we would submit the offer, which will be quite detailed, including our competencies on board, which distinguishes us from the competition. It's not that we would throw the number and that's it. No, we will explain how we derive this number. We will explain in big lines what is the development budget, what are the associated challenges. We don't talk about the risks, we talk about challenges, because everything is solvable. As long as we know what are the challenges, we know how to cope with them. We've got all the competencies on board, and we build it up gradually. And then once the offer is accepted, we would put forward the conditions in this offer. We'd like to complete on the property subject to planning permission and subject to structural integrity of the building. That means that if after we have exchanged on the property, we have run a structural survey, and if any serious defaults have been discovered, we have the right to walk away from the deal and get back the deposit we've paid. Or, as we've done on one of our projects, bring down additionally the price. So, for example, we paid like £1,000 on structural survey, and we get 10,000 down the purchase price, which was agreed already. So that is quite an interesting negotiation tool, which we put at our service as well. Always put in the offer subject to structural survey. Okay. Then we are completing on property and taking possession of it, and actually the development fund starts, where we have to bring together the whole array of specialists on board. So don't worry about too many details over there. Basically what happens, once we've taken possession of commercial property, as Hagar explained, we are paying business rates. But since our projects mainly consist of converting commercial into residential, we will apply for zero rating. That means that we are no more liable for business rates as soon as we are able to prove that we are starting the development works. Okay? So we would need to apply to local council and prove that we are making those development works and the property is zero rated as of day one of the development. We would appoint typically a main contractor, and we are fortunate enough after several years of presence in the UK now to build extremely strong team of build contractors in several locations. We always use local contractors because that means savings on travel, increased efficiency, they're getting less tired spending hours commuting. And finally, since they are local main contractors, they have their suppliers which are also local at good prices, competitive prices and good quality. So we have our local teams around Greater Manchester and Liverpool, and we have our local teams in London. Okay. And once we have put in place our teams and we also obtain the planning permit, we basically start developing the property. It happens under supervision of health and safety officer who will ensure that we are compliant with all the regulations in place. As you know, the UK market is very stringent and safety is top priority while doing any development. Before starting any development, you are supposed to submit F10 form, what we call, to inform the state that you are undertaking the development and you have assessed all the risks associated with health and safety of your laborers on site, and that you are fully compliant with all the measures to ensure that you are safe. Does that make sense? Whether you've got the similar rules in India, I believe?
On paper.
On paper. Okay. Yeah, in the UK, you are not only have them on paper, you are supposed to enforce them and implement them in your development. And if for some reason you would try to step aside, that might be really costly. So we are pushed towards the excellence just by the legislation framework. We have to be the best. Otherwise, it's really expensive. And after the development phase would be completed, so we have the build control officer who will sign off the project site. And that's the best day in the developer's life, where actually will pass over the you will pass over the keys to your letting agent. That exact moment when you drop off a bunch of keys to your letting agent, you're like, oof, done. But then the other fun starts. You need to supervise the letting agent so that he finds good tenants for you. We request our letting agents, depending on level of autonomy and level of experience they have, typically to get even pre-approval of some tenant profiles with ourselves before admitting them to the property. We want to be sure that once we have developed beautiful property on your behalf, that we have the best tenants possible, who will be taking care of it, who are solvable, who will be paying their rent on time, and who would be staying ideally there longer term, so that we reduce the turnover of the tenants in the property. We run periodical performance reviews of our letting agents, and if we believe they do not perform up to expectations of our team and our investors, we then proceed with the replacement. The best agents stay. The one which are performing in a bit less engaged manner, let's say, they are let go. For some of the properties, we might start with really good agents and then they get engaged into other agencies, as that happened with one of our properties. So we keep on picking up the best agents to ensure that the property is well managed and is bringing the substantial return, stable return to our investors. Okay. To explain how it goes about the structuring and about the geographies and strategies. Typically in Northwest, we would be looking at develop to hold strategy, meaning that on behalf of our investors, which will syndicate into groups of 5 to 7 investors, we will create an SPV, special purpose vehicle, which will invest into a selected project. And we will develop it in order to hold. So we will exploit the property on your behalf. It will be bringing the rental income, and at the same time, you will have the capital growth potential. Okay? It's not for nothing that we have chosen the Northwest, the Northern Powerhouse. You remember the slide from Hager's presentation about the growth, population growth. We are investing up in Northwest for develop to hold strategy, where we are enjoying the real steady capital growth and really exponential growth in population. There is job creation, there is a booming economy, and we are really motivated to exploit the best geography on behalf of our investors to secure the best return. As for London, we exploit over there the flip strategy. So typically with London, we'll be looking at 1 or 2 individual investors, private investors. Probably there are some of you in the room who would like to go this way. And we can find a tailor-made solution, a project where we will do everything from A to Z, from finding the property, presenting it for your approval, developing it, creating the equity. And the way we are creating the equity, we are converting the property, something smaller, into something bigger. We add up space. And we take out the risk because we create the profit on the differential between the build cost and resale value. Just as a quick example, in London, for per square foot, we will be paying roughly £160 in development cost, and resale value will be around £860. So we are creating £700 per square foot of profit. If you would multiply that times 200 or times 300, you will see immediately where the money goes and where the equity is created on London flips. So there is no risk at all at this kind of projects because we are basically technically enlarging the property. We are going for side or rear extensions on the ground floor or for loft conversions on the top floor. As I've mentioned quickly, we are working with different type of partnerships. And those are the opportunities which we have discovered in our last year in the UK, since we became much more locally interconnected. So now we are working with several associations. One of our tenants, they are taking care of young adults and youth with some initial troubles, which dropped out of college, which dropped out of their families, and they are helping to put them back on track. How cool is that? Just to be a landlord which provides accommodation to enable young people to get back to normal life and get reintegrated into the society and be, like a valuable member of it. And we believe it's really gratifying aspect of not only looking at financial return, but making a difference as a landlord in socially recognizable activities where you have the corporate and social responsibility aspect. Another association we have is with assisted living. So we have the partnership with assisted living, Halo Assisted Housing. They are backed by the state. So what happens, there might be some type of vulnerable tenants in need of accommodation once they are released from hospital. They are not fully yet operational, so they need a bit of special care, they need a supervision. For this reason, one of the units will be allocated to the caretaker. There is a guardian 24 hours on site. There are intercoms in each unit connected to the guardian unit. There is a wired fire alarm. In case of any potential risk, the fire alarm will go off. And there are CCTV cameras for enhanced security. So those people, they are being provided the best conditions to be able to recover from their illness. And that happens also in one of our properties. On the financial side, the rentals, they are at least 20% above the market level. So that pays back to be socially responsible. They are guaranteed, so there are no voids. And the contracts, they are concluded at least for 5 years. So we have in place a lease for 5 years, extendable for another 5 years, and there are cases when people keep on putting forward those contracts for up to 25 years. Would you like to be a landlord of a property with guaranteed return for at least 5 years, 10 years? How many of you would like to do that? So, everyone basically. What we are looking at, initial investment strategy was based on HMO, houses in multiple occupancy. Do you know the concept of HMO? No, okay. So that's typical for the UK, where you have one big property where you would let room by room, and tenants would use the communal kitchen and the shared bathroom and toilet facilities. And they are paying for room, and the utilities are provided, as well as broadband. So it's kind of mini hotel, but they are staying longer. As of 6 months, typically, sometimes for some of our properties, we will accept higher turnaround, 3 months, for example, stay of 3 months, provided that the property is filled correctly. In the beginning, the investment was focused on HMOs, a business-in-the-box model, because those were cash flowing as of day one. However, as we grew stronger and our local presence enlarged, we feel now much more confident to go for the next stage of development. So we are taking up the projects which we will develop ourselves. Of course, it will take a longer horizon of time. We will need probably 10, 12 months, but at the end, we will create more equity. We are in control of development phase from A to Z. Via putting the planning, we are de-risking the property because we know the planning rules and the permitted development rights, as Hager mentioned. That is a very nice feature where you are sure to be granted planning permission when you want to convert commercial into residential. We've just got a couple of planning permissions under this scheme. It works marvelously well if you know what you do. And then we combine as well the investment of into commercial units on mixed use. So not only that we will convert the commercial property into full residential, but if the area is right, we can keep one of the ground floor units as a shop. This will make sense if there is a good passage rate in the area, if the demand is good for commercial units. And then what type of tenants we would be typically looking at? If those are HMOs, one of the most desirable population might be students. If those are purely student HMO, we do not pay council rates. However, as you know, students' behavior sometimes might be a little bit questionable. They're in their young years, they want to have fun, so you need to have really strong agent in place to ensure that the property remains intact. Been there, done that, isn't it? So that's why more and more we are looking at working tenants. Those are nice blue-collar guys who are peacefully working during daytime, coming back home, they take their shower, they eat their takeaway food, they watch telly, and they go to sleep peacefully. Those are the tenants we like. They get their wages, they pay their rent, they don't create any trouble, and they're ideal tenants. Commercial tenants, that's another category of really nice, very nice tenants. They would be typically sitting on a longer term leases, and they are taking care of management of the property, any maintenance issues, because they would like to ensure that their business is operational as quickly as possible. If they would opt to signal it to the letting agent, it will take a bit of time to create the reporting, to organize the subcontractors, to get someone on site for maintenance. Well, if any small issues, typically commercial tenants will take care of it by themselves. They pay much bigger rents than residential ones, and they stay on the longer term rentals. So ideal profiles. In the future, we will be concentrating our efforts as well on increasing the mix of commercial and residential. We'll try to increase the ratio of commercial properties. So we are building around the competencies of the local agents. As soon as we are sure to have someone locally strong enough to manage the properties correctly, we build around that area and we build around that team. And we make sure that we have a couple of spare exits. If for some reason the unit would not work out as commercial, either we can convert it into residential, we can consider flipping it. Already for some of our commercial units, we've got the demand from existing tenants, can we buy them back? And we're like, that's really nice inquiry, but we believe our investors would be better off keeping that property and just receiving the rent from you. So please carry on with your lease contract. But just to show you how is the appreciation of our tenants, that immediately after moving in, they're like, oh yeah, that's really nice. The area is great. The location is brilliant. We have a stable client turn in. Oh, the passage rate is really high. We would like to own this property, but well, bad luck, we own it already and we don't want to sell. On behalf of our investors, we keep on growing our portfolio. And if anyone in the room would like to join us in this journey, just feel free to grab Prashant or myself and just have a quick chat about how it goes, okay? What about the power teams? So what makes you in confidence is exactly the people, the right people at right places. So we have the competencies at the nationwide level, namely we need the accountant which supervises all our UK entities, and they are certified accountants which provide really marvelous service, both consultant and regular accounting. Whatever questions we might have about fiscal treatment, we are sure to get qualified advice within 24 hours. Okay. Next one, solicitor, very important. Our solicitor, well, it looks like I'm overpraising our team, but believe me, we carefully selected them, and throughout the years, they've proven their competencies. I can say that those guys, their price point is slightly above the market average, but their service level is so exceptional, so that we get the best price-service ratio. They are extremely speedy. If within accounting, we would hear back within 24 hours, from our solicitor, we would hear back normally within 1 hour, and if any urgent advice is needed, well, couple question of dropping an SMS and getting a really urgent answer and real urgent consultation. Insurance broker, that's another important member of our power team, because while we are doing our best to manage the properties, sometimes hazards do happen. And it's better to make sure that you are properly insured for our needs. And finally, banker, the person who handles all the money on our behalf. So we've got also a system of centralized bank accounts. Each entity has got its own account, but they are kept with one banking entity for the ease of transfer. And then we would go into local power teams. As I mentioned, we prefer to use local contractors. And for any maintenance issues, our letting agents, we trust them to organize their local suppliers. Like this, initially we tried to centralize it at the level of our office and have one person to cover the whole maintenance for the Northwest. That proved a little bit less efficient than outsourcing it locally, and that works really well. So we are gradually evolving, we are trying the best approaches and picking up really the best practices over there. Evidently, that makes sense to pick up local suppliers and providers to source the windows, to source the plumbery, joinery, architraves, doors, whatever. It will always work out when you're working with local people. It will work out the best. We've got professional service providers, which are architect, structural engineer, build control officer, asbestos surveyor, to name a few. So those people, they have also local competencies. And we are working with local councils for business rates and the utility providers like United Utilities, Electricity Northwest, for the connections for the water, electricity, or Cadent Gas for the gas supply. Typically for our properties under assisted living, we prefer to skip the gas connection. I would rather have it disconnected officially and removed from the property supply and go to all electrics to prevent any hazards linked to more vulnerable types of tenants. So we're doing our best to be as responsible as possible in our role of landlord on your behalf.